Hi everybody, Dan Illman here with the DRF race of the day for Thursday, July the 7th. It's race number 7 at Delaware Park. We're going 7.5 furlongs on the turf. It's the $50,000 Sussex Stakes for Delaware registered and or certified foals. Let's take a peek at this field, and you can scan the QR code for race of the day access on your mobile devices. The horse to beat in this race is probably going to be Cannon's Roar. The number 4 has banked over $250,000 in his career and just missed in this race last year. He has a versatile running style, and the distance is really no problem for him, whether it's a little bit long or at this 7.5 furlongs. Pace could be a very important handicapping component in this race, however, and as we take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, there are a couple of horses in here that should show speed, and I agree with the pace projector. I think the 10 So Street will show fresh speed off a long layoff, especially stretching out around 2 turns for the first time. And Indian Lake, who was the pace setter in the Virginia Derby last year, he doesn't necessarily need the lead to win, but he should be very close and right in the mix when they turn for home. I also think a horse like the number 3 Epic Luck can get close to the pace. He's shown a lot of speed on turf in the past. We're going to start things off, though, with a horse that's hoping for some pace up front because he got none in his last 2 races at this Delaware meet. And that's the number 1, In It for the Love. 15-1 on the morning line. Carol Cedeno is named to ride. This horse finished off his Tampa Bay winter campaign with 3 wins from 4 starts, and expectations must have been pretty high coming into Delaware for the spring and into the summer. His first start at Delaware, no pace. He was wired by a horse named Uncaptured Spirit, who walked the dog through fractions of 25, 49, and then sprinted away the third quarter in 112-4, and In It for the Love just couldn't make up that tactical disadvantage. Last time out, similar situation. 24-4 for the opening quarter, 49-3 for the half. In It for the Love didn't like being held up behind that slow pace. And maybe he's a little bit of a tough horse to ride. He can get fractious in the gate. He was shaking his head around, a bit eager, maybe a bit rank while saving ground. Jeremy Rose finally took him to the outside to try to get into the race on the second turn. He was 5-6 wide in the stretch, and he was running on a little bit at the end. It showed a little bit of promise. So the combination of the slow pace, the wide trip, might have worked against him. He draws the rail here, and he might get a better race flow. The 2 is Samedi Knight, who ran in the Sussex last year and was only beaten 2 lengths. It was his second start of the layoff. He was stretching out off a short 1-turn sprint, and he's going to repeat that same pattern here. I just didn't love his return off the layoff last time out at Presque Isle Downs. He was near the back of the pack. He was under urging on the turn, and he just didn't make up a lot of ground late. Maybe he needed the race. I think he might be slightly better on synthetic than he is on turf, but he did show some speed in this race, stretching out to 7.5 last year, and maybe he'll be in the second flight or so, attempting to save ground in behind the lead. Epic Luck, the number 3, this is a horse you can look at one of 2 different ways. One way is that he won his first 2 starts, including the Kitten's Joy around 2 turns on turf, and since then it hasn't been very good, and you can simply make the case the rest of the crop has caught up with him. He was a precocious 2-year-old, and now he's just not as effective. Or you could look at his last 2 races and say he was in tough, and the pace scenario was against him both times, and thus he had no shot. Case in point, the Laurel Futurity, his 3rd lifetime outing, he was in against a good 2-year-old and ready to perform, and he went 22-3 for the first quarter, and that was just too fast. And earlier this year, returning to turf in the James W. Murphy at Pimlico, he went 45 and change to the half, while battling on the lead, and he paid the price. His subsequent 2 starts on dirt are slightly better, but on turf he's always shown some speed, and he might not have to work as hard to get to the front in this race. 12-1 on the morning line. Aubrey Green takes them out. Cannon's Roar, as I mentioned in the open, probably the horse to beat in this race. He was second in this race last year, just missing by a nose, going the 7.5. He has 1 race this year. It was the Find at Laurel. He was the beaten favorite that day. The early part of the race, the trip worked out very well. He was a pace-tracking, ground-saving pocket trip, but he tried to come up the rail turning into the stretch at Laurel and just pinched a little bit, had to force an alter to the outside. I don't think he would have won with a perfect trip, but he was running on at the end of the race. A good sign for an 8-year-old who many thought might be getting a little bit long in the tooth. He has plenty of back races that would make him super tough in a race like this, but he's another horse that hasn't won in a long time. You gotta go back to 2020 for his most recent victory, and he's been the beaten favorite the last 4 times he went off the chalk, as in the Sussex Stakes of last year. So Cannon's Roar can be had, but this just looks like a very good spot. And I talked to his trainer, Dale Capuano, before the find, his most recent start, and he was disappointed that he couldn't get a race into this horse before the find. He had him entered at Delaware. Weather washed him off the turf. Laurel's weather wasn't cooperating, so he had to run find off the layoff, and maybe he was a bit short. Something tells me he'll be a bit tighter this time around. And he's versatile. Tappin' Cat, the 5, is entered main track only. He's very tough if this race ends up on the dirt. So we'll move to the 6, Sharp Red Eagle, who is a very lightly raced 3-year-old making his turf debut in his most recent start. This is at Parks, going the 7.5 furlong distance. And as we take a look at it, Sharp Red Eagle had a pretty good trip-saving ground going into the first turn. He was taken off the rail by Andrew Wolfsant and attacked on the outside. And while it really never looked like he was going to win, he was pretty game to finish second behind a Gulfstream shipper that would come back to earn a 77 Beyer speed figure in his next start, albeit went third in an $8,000 starter allowance. Sharp Red Eagle is one of 2 horses in this race cross-entered in a race at Delaware on Friday, so he might not compete here, especially with be a shorter price in the Friday starter optional, but he's not exposed. He has a lot of upside, and that 74 Beyer from the last race plays well if he can take a necessary step forward. He also has a hint of tactical speed. If you're looking at a price horse, you could certainly do a lot worse. Mighty Meister is the number 7, and this horse pulled off a 13-1 upset at Aqueduct 2 starts back, and I actually liked the way he won that race. He broke from post 11. They went 22-3 for the opening quarter, a legitimate pace. He pushed a 37-1 shot early. Maybe that helped Mighty Meister a little bit, but he just kept right on going to the wire, digging in gamely in between horses to score. I was looking forward to seeing what we got from Mighty Meister first time against winners in a starter optional at Pimlico, going 1 1/8, and we just got no speed. He got hung outside and didn't do anything. Now, the race did produce 2 next out winners. The 5th place horse, Samui Sunset, returned to win with Beyers of 71, 77, then ran a good third last week with a 75. So that was a pretty good field. Mighty Meister also cross-entered on Friday and would be a shorter price in that race. And he does like to be close to the pace when he's successful. There are other speeds in here. One of them is Indian Lake, high percentage connections, Jamie Rodriguez, Jamie Ness, versatile horse. He's won at 6. He's won at 1.5 miles. He's won on dirt. He's won on turf. The last time he ran on turf, he has an excuse. 27-1 that day against some good stake sprinters in New York. Got wired in a race where the 9th place horse came back in his next 3 starts to earn Beyers of 88, 85, 93. The latter 2 Beyers were winning races. Indian Lake's prior turf race was the Virginia Derby. He showed good speed in that race. They thought enough of him to bet him down to 5-1 in that spot. And he was 3rd in the Sussex last year with a very bad trip where he was trying to sort of weave his way through traffic down towards the inside. He'll be forwardly placed in this race. He'll be in major contention turning for home. And you can argue that 3-1 is a fair price considering all the things going for him on paper. Wild Banker is the number 9. He's 0 for 7 lifetime on turf and might simply be better on dirt. But if you believe he can translate his dirt form to turf, you look at his last few races and just check out who he's been going in against. He was 2nd in the Empire Classic behind American Revolution, who came back to win the prestigious Grade 1 Cigar Mile, and he's been in his 2 subsequent starts against good New York bred stakes competition, horses like My Boy Tate and Seafoam. He fits this race from a class perspective. It's just whether A, he gets enough pace to run at in late stages, and B, whether he's as effective on turf. So Street, the number 10, interesting. It's his 22nd lifetime start. and his first race around 2 turns. We haven't seen him since October 23rd in the Maryland Million Turf Sprint, and in that race, one of the region's better turf sprinters, a Grateful Bred, just got away with the easiest of leads. So Street was on the chase close up, but couldn't sprint home with the likes of Grateful Bred and got tired at the end. He was listed as a vet scratch the following month, and now he shows up off of a lengthy layoff for a new trainer in Michael Matz. Matz has done very well recently with horses coming off layoffs of 6 months or greater. I believe he is 4 for his last 8. So Street does have speed. He should show it stretching out, and he has the barn stats to prove that he can run off of a layoff. I am a little bit concerned about the additional distance, especially if a horse like Indian Lake is breathing down his neck. Kenny Had a Notion completes this field, another early 2-year-old. His horse won the Jamestown Sprinting on turf, the Maryland Million Nursery on dirt, the Spectacular Bid on dirt. Since then, he's only reached the winner's circle once, and I wonder if he's improved since his 2- and early 3-year-old campaign. Claimed out of his most recent start, this will be his second race of the form cycle, and I just want to take a wait-and-see approach, even with an aggressive rider like Kendrick Carmouche taking the mount. Before we take a look at my top picks, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Plenty of graded stakes races this week. The Delaware Handicap and the Robert G. Dick Memorial at Delaware Park. Of course, you've got the Belmont Derby, the Belmont Oaks, the Suburban, the Victory Ride at Belmont, Delaware, Belmont, all over the country. Indiana Derby, Indiana Oaks. You got the Los Alamitos Derby, all covered by DRFTV. Click that subscribe button. Top pick time for Thursday's race of the day. Respect Cannon's Roar. Respect Indian Lake. Respect So Street. I want a price. In It for the Love is 15-1 on the morning line. I think he was really compromised by the lack of pace in his last 2 races. I think he will get pace this time around, and I don't mind him cutting back to 7.5. Does he class up? We will find out, but at least we'll find out at a price. 16410 for me in the Sussex at Delaware on Thursday. Good luck.